everyone. This is Anna at Migrant Doctor Mom, and today we are talking about things you must do in your first week of arriving in Australia. If you're new today, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're a returning subscriber, always I'm grateful for the time that you take to watch, the time that you get to give me feedback, because doing that allows me to keep bringing out these videos. So let's just quickly dive into it and talk about the things that we must do in the first week of arriving in Australia. So very important thing to do as soon as you arrive is get yourself a phone number. So getting a phone number can come in various ways that I'm going to talk about, but the biggest service providers in Australia will be Optus, Vodafone, and Telstra. And it's very important to know what region you're staying and what the reception in that area, how it is. And you can learn that from the people that interact with, and also just the Google reviews that are available. So as soon as you decide that, let's say you're going with Telstra, then you need to sort of decide what are you getting. So in Australia, when you go to get yourself a phone number, you can either get a SIM card, and with a SIM card, you can use your phone, the phone that you already have, or you can get a SIM and a phone. So it just depends on what you want to do. The only difference, obviously, with a SIM on its own may be a bit cheaper, because then you can either decide that you're getting yourself onto a prepaid plan, which is essentially what you pay for before you get the SIM, and also before you get the service, or the postpaid plan that you pay at the end of the month and will include what you have used. And if you've called overseas and things like that, the cost becomes a little bit more. So very important to decide whether you're getting yourself a prepaid SIM or whether you're getting yourself a postpaid SIM, then deciding whether you're going with Telstra, Vodafone, or Optus, or some of the other smaller phone providers. And as soon as you make up that decision, all you need to do, or all you need to have, is passport to apply for this. So you just need to present in person, go to one of the shopping malls, find yourself Telstra, whatever, one of the service providers that I've already mentioned, and using your passport as your form of identification, they'll be able to support you and help you, and you can get yourself a phone number that you want. Okay. The second thing that you must do as soon as you arrive in Australia is plan and get a bank account. Getting a bank account will assist you in getting, as soon as you get your bank account, you can get yourself a bank statement, and you can get yourself a debit card that you can both use these two things as your form of, getting the 100 points that you may require to apply for things like your children check, your police clearance, which are things that you'll be aiming to do by your second or latest, your third week of arriving in Australia. So it's very, very key to try and get this out of the way quickly. As soon as you arrive, go to, some of the banks. The biggest banks would be, ANZ Bank, would be probably Commonwealth Bank, NAB, Westpac, Bankwest. So there are a couple of banks that you can choose from and decide which one you want to go with. And as soon as you decide that, let's say, for example, I want to go with Commonwealth Bank, then you need to present yourself again in person. So you can start the process online. That's the beauty of Australia. A lot of things you can do them online, and that's the initial thing that you may want to do. I want to go with Commonwealth Bank, start the process online, and then you may just present to the bank just for the verification of your documents or your ID identification. So apply online, present to them, show, and the good thing again with the banks is all you will need is your passport. Okay, so your passport, and which would obviously be tied in with your visa. And then using those two things, you'll be able to get yourself a bank account. And again, like I always say, the beauty of Australia, a lot of things are online. You can get yourself, most of the banks have online platforms that you can do your own, transactions online. You can print statements by yourself and things like that. So it's quite important at that point in time to consider setting yourself up for this. And as soon as you have an address, they should be able to send through your bank card. That later on, you will use that bank card and the statement as to just make up your 100 points that you will need for applying other things. The third important thing that you need to do in your first week of arriving in Australia is think about your transportation. Because you will need to move from point A to point B, and you need, all of us, our needs are different. The commonest way, obviously, of moving around is using the public transport. And every state in Australia has its own, way of doing the public transport. So you'll find a lot of the, no, not a lot, actually all the states will have their own, card that you can use for in the public transport. So like, for example, in Western Australia, you'll have your Smart Rider. And then let's say if you live in Melbourne, you'll need your Myki. If you live in Sydney, you'll need your Opal. If you live in South Australia, I think you will need, trying to remember, South Australia, I think you will need My Way or something. The Metro card. Tasmania, you will need your green card. And in Canberra, you'll need your MyWave. So you'll notice that having the card is important because, your transport costs are at slightly less compared to if you are buying, a card, you're paying every time that you travel. And again, the beauty of having the card is you can load it online, you can load it at the train station, and one may be asking, where am I going to get this card? So first, just present yourself to the train station and you can buy your card from the train station. And for students, don't forget, being a student, you can apply it via your school, and again, that will allow you to have, a little bit slight less transport costs that you will require. One other important thing, after you get your card and you're using the public transport, always remember to tag on and tag off. Very, very important, because you don't want to be the first week of Australia or the second week of being in Australia, and then the traffic police, what do you call them? The railway police guys, check your card and they find that you haven't, tagged on. So they may actually think, you haven't paid for your transport, but it may just be an error on your side. And remember, you'll just get a ticket, and you don't want to be paying tickets as soon as you arrive, because obviously, you want to cut on cost and you don't want to start your life in Australia that way by paying tickets, no? So very important to remember to tag on and again, tag off. The worst thing about not tagging off, I think once in Sydney, I didn't tag off, and you'll have to pay the whole day rates. So you may find instead of just having paid $2 or even $1, that you've ended up paying like 20 something dollars, which obviously again is wasting your money. So very important. The other way, obviously, there are other forms of transport in Australia. And in your first week, depending on, your bank statements from overseas or, the support that you have as soon as you arrive in Australia, you may be able to get yourself a private car, or you may be able to use the scooters, you may be able to use, the taxis or Uber. So just think about your transportation, because obviously you'll need to move from point A to point B, from work or to school or to get yourself some grocery. And so look at getting yourself some means of transport. The other thing that you have to do within your first week of arriving in Australia is apply for your tax file number, commonly called TFN number. Remember, application for this is free. I put a link on how you can apply for this. Your tax file number is, it's your own tax file number. It would allow you, once you have the TFN, it will allow you when you're paying, for your taxes, then you are not paying, with the TFN, you're not going to pay too much tax. You'll just, be paying within your tax bracket. And the thing with applying for your TFN, remember you shouldn't give anyone your TFN except a few people. And again, I will put that onto as a link so that you know. But in summary, your tax agent can have your tax file number, your workplace can have your tax file number. If you are on Centrelink, I mean, you're coming in already as a permanent resident or something like that, and you're getting onto, Centrelink benefits and stuff like that, you can provide that to Centrelink and stuff like that. So get yourself a tax file number, look at the link that I'm going to provide, and get yourself a tax file number within the first week of arriving in Australia. Lastly, the thing again that you need to think about as soon as you arrive is again your accommodation. Remember, the two main platforms for getting accommodation is the real estate or the domain. But if you're hoping to share a flat, flatshare.com.au is another place that you can search, and hopefully look out for my video on how to get accommodation or how to get a rental in Australia. And just follow the process of doing that. So essentially, log on to one of those places. Remember, at the moment, it is quite a competitive process of getting accommodation. So give yourself, start as soon as you arrive so that you're giving yourself enough, enough sort of time for you to be able to successfully secure yourself a rental or find yourself accommodation. And the other good thing as well is, as soon as you arrive, then you can have, enough time. If you're a student, before you start school intensely or work intensely, you can quickly, get yourself accommodation. So those are some of the things that you have to do as soon as you arrive, especially in the first week. As soon as you arrive, get these things going so that you are, positioning yourself for success. And obviously, there will be a few other important documents and applications that you'll be doing in your second week or your third week. But remember, these first few things that you're doing in the first week will come in handy in your second and third week. And look out for that video as well. And I'll talk about that as well. So thanks again for watching this video. Thanks again for your support. And share this content so that we get as many people well prepared for starting life in Australia. Thank you so much, and God bless.